Hey, what's up, fellow RC nerds? I thought I'd document this suspension upgrade on my WPL WP-14. You notice these aren't the stock wheels. I'll probably do another video about that, but we're talking about suspension today. I've obviously actually only done on one side because I want to show you what stock looks like compared to the upgrade. So as you can see, it's quite a bit of difference in terms of ground clearance. Yeah, obviously helped by tiny bit bigger wheels here, but I'm going to show you what I've done basically. Now the really interesting thing here is obviously these back shocks are sprung loaded, but what I've discovered up here is this spring is actually a tiny little spring like that, based here in there inside this. So this front shock here, it actually does nothing. So what I've done is basically, I'll show you. I'm going to unscrew. If you unscrew this screw, warning on the other side, it was very tight. It's like they've locked tight or glued it in somehow. So I actually wrecked the thread, the Phillips thing on the other side. Had to replace it. But what you got in here is this little spring here, and it comes out. So what you can then do is I just replace this, but you'll notice now this is completely free. So I'm just going to replace this screw. So finding the correct shocks was a little bit of trial and error. I initially bought these 40mm shocks, which are designed for the SCX, I think it's 1/24 scale Bronco or something. And I found that these holes in these little brass things were just too small, and even if I tried to drill it out for this size screw, then it just basically destroyed the little brass. I don't know what the correct term is for these, but so what I've done is you can actually use a little tiny knife to prise out these little rubber rings, and then these pop out. So then, yeah, you've got these little rings. But I found, I mean, even though these are similar to the stock, not quite long enough, and so I ordered some, I think these are 53mm shocks. Again, trial and error, from Zero, I think it was Zero RC store or something like that. It's all on AliExpress. Now these obviously, they have the right size holes. They're a little stiff, and these are almost too big for the screw, so you only get a tiny bit of screw coming out the other side. So what I did is you can actually, these are interchangeable, which is kind of handy. So that's what I've got going on over here, and I use the spring from this, so this is like super flexy. So just to show you that process, it's pretty easy. You unscrew this top screw, watch these things because they go flying sometimes, especially if you're cack-handed like me. Helps to have a diddly little screwdriver. And there you go. Completely useless shock. So then what I do now is I take this bigger 53mm shock and change off, well, so get rid of that big stiff spring, say that too quickly, and remove this one. And then that little fella goes on there. Obviously this is a bit too short, so wind the adjuster up a little. So you got a nice bit of movement there. And then obviously remove this and replace it with the top of this one. Now when it comes to actually putting the screws in, I'm actually just using these tiny little O-rings on the screw. I mean, it's not ideal, but there's not a great deal of movement going on here. So, you know, I think that's good enough. There's still plenty of screw coming through. So yeah, then obviously this one goes in here. You have to put it on the lower one, because if you put it on the upper one, then it fouls. You see that? Maybe you can't. Yeah, it fouls the suspension arm. So you put it on that bottom one. You're probably wondering why I'm doing this, but you actually get a lot more ground clearance up front. As if putting the back wheels on the front isn't giving me enough ground clearance, but hey, the more ground clearance the better, I figure, for one of these little buggies. Just do that up, obviously not completely tight, but enough so there's movement. I think that little screw just pokes through there. And then placing this in the furthest of the two holes. Let's move this out of the way so I can get in there. And there it is. I've done that bottom one a little tight. Yeah, so quite a bit more ground clearance than stock, and they also look super cool. But yeah, there we go. Now when it came to the rear, I actually used the stock spring on the front one here, but for this one I used one of the SCX 24 springs, which are, I've got it here, they're just a little bit smaller. If I can untangle these two. Yeah, so this is there's actually two springs. I forgot to say there's two springs that come with the SCX 24, and one slightly stiffer, but it's obviously shorter than the 0RC 53mm shocks. And why do you want to do that at the back here? Because otherwise, I think if they're both, you just get just enough sag when it's sat. If these were both the 53mm shocks, you probably get too much wear on this joint. So I just want a little bit of sag when it's sat. Yeah. But I haven't actually given it a test run yet, so we'll see how she goes.